Just want to take a moment about the differences between the pole arms. This is obviously spear, something that is 8 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet long. With a spear, this is a long-range weapon. That goes without saying. And the grip is typically toward the far end to get the maximum amount of reach. To parry with a spear, there's a particular method described by Marozzo and Mancellino, the two sources for Bolognese Polearms, in that you take the entire spear and throw it over your head. Both of your arms raise. It's even described that you arch your back and throw your belly out when you do this maneuver. So you could be in this position waiting as patient, need to parry. You could have thrusted and immediately need to parry. So it's always available to you. The hands don't move. And that we would call the spear parry. Now that's also mentioned by Marozzo in the play The Partisan. So this is a partisan. This is not a spear. It should not be conflated with a spear. It's not the same thing. The partisan should not be thought of as a long-range polearm. It's a short-range polearm. We can tell this from both the writings of Mancellino and Marozzo. They use it that way and they describe it that way. It's a short-range weapon. So I could, having thrusted, need to parry in the same way as we would with a spear. That's described by Marozzo. But there's another kind of parry that's discussed with the partisan that is not ever mentioned with a spear by either Marozzo or Mancellino. And that is to parry moving only the back hand. The front hand is stationary. The back hand moves either up to the temple or down toward the belt, as Marozzo would say. So, and even said, without moving your front hand at all. So it's not that the front hand is moving in this manner. No. It's stationary, only the back hand. Now, for that purpose, how should we hold the partisan? Now, the problem is that, may I borrow yours for a second? Thank you. The problem is that most people are going to be using something like this, a rubber or a plastic partisan head. Now, with that, it's very light, weighs practically nothing. And so I could hold that more toward the end and make this parry without really any difficulty, fast and precise. However, this is not weightless. This is actually quite heavy. And it isn't practical, feasible, or plausible to hold a partisan on the end of it and make this kind of parry. It's ineffective, slow, imprecise, and not what they were intending. In fact, the imagery of Marozzo, when he's holding the partisan, the lead hand is quite close to the iron. So the grip of the partisan is going to differ from the grip of the spear because one's a long-range weapon and one's a short-range weapon. One's, they're used differently. They're not the same weapon. With the partisan, your front hand is going to find the center of balance to facilitate the most important thing, which is the parrying. Where should the rear hand be? Comfortably in a position where the parry is the priority. This is what I can make sure I do well. Don't need to put it back here. That's not, that's ridiculous. So, the grip of the partisan. So I make some parries. I need to thrust. It's an easy thing to do, to take this back hand and bring it to the end. So here's a practice for anyone wanting to do Bolognese partisan. Hold the partisan in this manner. Make sure your parries are effective, precise. when you need to thrust, take your rear hand rapidly to the end, advance thrusting, and come back. On thrusting, again, given the nature of what this really is, this is not how to thrust. Okay, so when you thrust, keep some space between your hands. You've got to recover quickly, with control. You would not want to stick your partisan out here like this. You cannot control it. It is too heavy. And, you can't speak of counterweight with something like that. That's meaningless. Similarly, if I want to change from holding my partisan on one side to the other, similarly, I would not put it out in front of me because that's ridiculous. Why? If I want to change sides, I simply change sides. Lift it up, step back. This is easy and fast, and no one can interfere with. Attack my weapon in a way that I can't protect myself. Similarly, if I also want to change sides, it's an easy thing to do to turn that. I don't bring my weapon out where my enemy can reach it. I can stay safely out of range when I do so. It's fast. My point comes back online rapidly. So be aware that training with something like this, you will be prone to bad habits. Not your fault, simply because you use what you've got as you think you should. Something like this, well, yeah, you can thrust like that all day long. But I would say if you have this, put a 5-pound weight on it. You can get those training weights that you can put them on your wrist. Put a 3 or a 5-pound weight. Maybe 5 is too much, but put a 3-pound, absolutely 3-pound weight on it, and then practice with your plastic partisan and see how that changes how you operate. That's very important. So realize that your grip should be almost always with a partisan in this position, except when I am needing maximum reach to stab someone, but I come right back to this position. With some practice, you can develop that skill in no time at all. So your practice, get the grip, parry, up and down, moving only your rear hand and neither of your feet, as Marozzo requested, only the rear hand, parry, parry, then slide. So both hands slide, pull back, and that's a critical skill if you want to learn Bolognese partisan. It's not slow. It's the way it ought to be used because this is, as I say, short range polearm. If you're faced with someone with a spear, facing someone with a spear, the partisan would look quite a bit different from the spear, and I would be what? What's the first thing that Marozzo said to do with a partisan? The very first thing. Press. Press my opponent. Why would a long-range weapon be used to press someone with? Why would you would never do that with a spear. In fact, that's never, ever suggested with a spear because a spear is a long-range weapon. That doesn't make sense. It does make sense with a partisan. So get used to the fact that the spear and the partisan are wildly different weapons and to be used in very different, even it sometimes seems contradictory ways. So I already see people doing it. I already see people doing this. Look how much stick is down there at the bottom. No. So you parry low all the way so you can touch the end, and thrust. So you are grabbing the very end. When you thrust, front arm's not bent. Front arm's straight, completely straight. Parry, thrust, return to the original position. Only the front foot moves, and only when you thrust. Morozzo said specifically, do not move your feet when you parry.
We're sliding it back.
Yank it back. That's in Manciolino said that. He was talking about spear, but he said yank it back with your backhand. Yes, right. After you parry, I slide, thrust, and I yank it back with my backhand and put my hands back where they were in the first place. But to make one further point, if I had a partisan and I were going to hold it like a spear and face someone with a spear, there's no way I could win this. The speed of a spear is going to overcome the clumsiness of this weapon. Don't think, oh, I'm fighting a spear, I have to hold it like a spear. You'll lose. The effectiveness of the partisan comes in its characteristics, which is the weight of it will tend toward using it this way. Here, if I were facing with a spearman, I'd be perfectly happy if I were holding it correctly, and I'd actually start pressing him to get him to attack me, because I can parry him quickly and get in there. I would be faster at a closer range than he would be, which is exactly what Antonio Manciolino said about the partisan versus the spear. So, short range weapon, that's the message.